Hi, my name is Anna Sims, and today I'm doing my Lab 2 deliverable for my Intro to GIS course at the University of Georgia. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about with these maps that I created is where the data came from to create them. So the data I used in these maps came from the United States Census as well as the National Historical Geographic Information System, or NHGIS data archives. So I did some analysis to create these maps, and the specific analysis I did was spatial analysis, and I did this to see where the percentages of the male population employed in manufacturing as well as the percentages of female population employed in educational services and healthcare and social assistance were really high and where they were really low and where it seemed to just kind of be mediocre. So when I was making this map, I decided to do it with rates rather than just the raw count of the people employed. And the reason I did this was because if I wouldn't have made this into rates, I would have basically been making a purely population map, because anywhere with a higher population density would have spiked with a higher amount of people employed in these fields simply because there are more people there than in the other areas. So in order to keep that bias out of my maps, I made a rate out of the populations. So to make this rate for the males, I took the percent of the male population employed in manufacturing and divided it by the total male population and multiplied it by 100 in order to make it into a percent. And I did the same thing for the females, where I took the percent or the amount of female population employed in educational services and healthcare and social assistance and divided that by the total female population and multiplied it by 100, again to make that into a percent as well. So I saw some interesting patterns in these maps. I found it interesting that there was a spike up here in Indiana and Ohio, because that's not really a place I would think of as being really big in manufacturing, since it's a pretty small area. But I guess since they're pretty industrialized, that it makes more sense. It made a decent amount of sense to me that these areas over here didn't have as high of a male population employed, because these in particular here and all through here are they're more agricultural. They're not big in industrial factories and stuff like that, so that one made sense. And then for the females in educational services and healthcare and social assistance, it was interesting because it seemed like these maximum values really were in a line from Texas up through North Dakota. So you can see these values are higher over here and then over here as well. And then there's a small little maximum over here as well that seems to be pretty centrally located right where Kentucky, West Virginia come together. And then over here there were some small maximums, but nothing to write home about, I would say. So for these maps, I was very careful in my choice of classification and color scheme. So the classification I chose for both maps was the natural breaks classification, because it's based on the distribution. So this made sure to keep where not a lot of error can happen with the distribution. And I thought, when I was going through and looking at the different classifications, I thought this one highlighted the max and mins the best for each map. And then for the coloring, I used a choropleth map, and I used the hue with the color saturation. So the lower saturated colors are the lower percents, and the more saturated colors are the higher percents, and that's for the men and women both on their maps. So I used red for men just because I thought it stuck out and was easy to read, and then I used green for women because it was a little bit of a softer color and also easy to read with the max and mins. And I chose the softer color because women often are perceived as softer than men. They're a little gruff. And so that's all I really have. Thanks for listening.